Do you want to scale your business? These are the 3 things you can implement right now. Like literally push pause and go and do them in your business. It'll make all the difference in the world. Quick story though, before I get into the 3 things. Recently, a prospective client came to us and he's in deep trouble. He burned through a lot of cash and they were on the verge of going bankrupt. And he said to me, he's like, back up 2 years ago, Steve, I wanted to grow the company. I was like, okay, yeah, that's a worthy goal. And so he said, I decided to hire a bunch of competent, smart people. His theory was if he brought these people into his business, then they would help to build the systems to grow the business and all of a sudden they would scale and make a ton of money. But there's a difference between finders, minders, and grinders. Finders are those who go out there and they find the work. They make things happen. They move and shake. The minders are the people who mind the work. They manage the work. And then the grinders are the people who go out there and bust things out. It's really hard to hire somebody who can think from a design perspective about systems, to design systems to put in place. It's another thing for the same person to then manage the system. And then it's another thing for the person to go implement the system and to go do it. Because you're trying to implement the finder, minder, and grinder into this one person. Really complicated to do, especially when you're doing that across functions. So a lot of businesses scale this way. Maybe they don't hire a bunch of employees or they get excited about growth. They'll turn the engine on when it comes to paid ads. They'll bring in a bunch of new leads. The systems aren't in place. Their offers aren't strong. Their delivery is weak and they lose a ton of money. And I've seen this happen over and over again. It's super sad when it does because it breaks people and it breaks businesses. And this person was definitely broken. So I'm gonna walk you through the 3 things that I've seen over and over again. I've learned these as a CFO, as a CEO. I've turned around a lot of businesses. We've worked with a lot of companies, and these are the things that I've learned. Number 1 is document. Now, before you get all anxious or before you start thinking about that super thick standard operating procedure manual or that book, right? Let's just keep things very simple. There's a book I read a while back. It's called The Checklist Manifesto. And in the book, it essentially talks about this doctor who realized that by making checklists, and if doctors followed the checklist, a lot of lives were being saved. And I think the same thing is true in your business. When you have a super thick guide with all these standard operating procedures, that could be great, but it's only great if people use it and read it. So instead, when it comes to documentation and documenting processes, I recommend taking a checklist approach. Now you may be wondering, all right, Steve, I have like 100 processes in my business. Where do I even start when it comes to documenting? I would say this, go on vacation, like literally or figuratively in your head, right? Metaphorically, whatever the word is. But imagine you go on vacation for a month. What would break in your business? In other words, if nobody could call you, they can't call you, they can't email you, they can't text you, they can't DM you on Instagram or however your employees contact you, what would break and what would be disastrous in your company? Make a list of those things. Those are the first things to document in your business. And then once you document those and you have a checklist, then take that checklist and give it to somebody and say to Sarah or Billy Bob or whoever and say, here's a checklist. I want you to do this process and let them do it. Like follow the checklist and see if they can execute. And that's where you're going to figure out where you have gaps. Maybe you're over explaining things on the checklist, or maybe it's too incomplete. So find the gaps, fix the checklist. And then once somebody can follow the process by using your checklist, you're golden. Then you're going to move on to other checklists in your business based on areas of most importance. A lot of times people get stuck because they think of all the processes in their business and there's hundreds. It's like, okay, I need to document, walking up the office. I need to document running to the bank to deposit checks. I need to document payroll, et cetera, right? And it becomes way too much. So just think of it like that. What's going to break first, document those things, and then move on to the next things. Now, you can do it yourself, set the standard, give the example, create the template, and then pass it along to your employees and say, hey, look, I want you to create checklists for the main things in your job or in your function, and that's a great way to do it. If you don't document things in your business, guess what? The whole business relies on you. And let's say you have 2 companies. We have 2 companies here. They both do $10 million a year in revenue. They both make $2 million in profit. One is worth 0. The other one is worth $20 million. You may be wondering, why is one worth zero when they both do the same amount of revenue and they both have the same amount of profit? The reason why there's this valuation gap is because in the first business, everything is dependent on that business owner. There's no business. They bring in all the leads, they do all the execution, everything is up in their head. And when that happens, there's no business, because if the owner goes away, everything falls apart. In the second example, same amount of revenue, same amount of profit, but the business owner took the time to create these checklists, to create these processes, to train employees, and very few things rely on that business owner, and therefore you have a business that can actually be sold. So that's the key. That's number one, document. Number two is all about defining success in everybody's role. Recently, I participated in this offsite with a client. They brought in a facilitator. They're going to talk about planning for the upcoming year. And the facilitator started drawing out the org chart, right? So he's like, okay, what's the org chart? Okay, Bill's up here. Here's Sally. Here's Jen, blah, blah, blah. And he started putting all these boxes to illustrate what the organization looked like and what the structure was. And then he's like, all right, well, we need to move, Sally from this position to this other position, but they don't really have the capabilities and the skills. So maybe we create a new role. So he draws like a new box. And then all of a sudden, what was somewhat simple, but kind of confusing, became super complex. And I said, if you implement that org structure, you'll go bankrupt, because your competitors are operating with a much leaner structure. Their cost structure is going to be lower than you, so they're going to make more profit, and ultimately the complexity is going to put you out of business. So when it comes to defining success in your company, I would start with your key people, and I would describe very simply 3 to 5 things that describe what are they responsible for or accountable for in their role, and what does success look like. We call these success measures at Coltivar. So you could do the same exact thing in your business. So define what does success look like and create a chart based on responsibility. Don't create an org chart based on title. You want to create boxes on your org chart based on what you need to get done and what those responsibilities and accountabilities look like. You don't want to create an org chart based on titles. Work doesn't get done based on titles. Work gets done based on the responsibility that you shell out. So anytime I restructure a business, and this freaks people out, it might freak you out a little bit too, I'll say to them, imagine you fire everybody in your business tomorrow or today if you want to have fun. Just fire everybody. Don't do this. Don't go fire everybody. This is just metaphorically speaking. But imagine you fire everybody in your business, you blow the whole thing up, you go crazy. And then the next day you're like, okay, I'm going to rebuild from scratch. What would it look like? What would that dream organization look like? Start putting boxes on based on the responsibilities or the things you need to get done. And then once you have that built out, you can start putting people into those boxes. Don't do it the other way around. That's how most companies do it, and it doesn't work out super well. So that's number 2, define success in each role, and that'll help you to clarify what do you need as it relates to talent and people throughout your business. Number three is super important, but before I get into number 3, if you're listening to all this and you ever want a second set of eyes on your business and you're doing more than $2 million a year in revenue, I got good news for you. At Coltivar, we open up a few spots a month where we do a free financial review. No hooks, no gimmicks. We'll literally look at your financial statements and see if we can find at least $100,000 in profit and cash flow, and we'll give you at least 3 recommendations to fix these things, right? It's totally free because we believe better business equals better lives. That's our purpose, and that's what we want to live up to. If this is interesting to you, click down below in the show notes. There's a link. You could always go to coltivar.com as well to get your free financial analysis. Like I said, spots are limited though. All right, back to it. Number 3, when it comes to scaling your business, you have to fix your sales and marketing machine. When I say machine, it's really like a system. Let me explain. Most companies, they do sales and marketing, but it's very disjointed. They have a website, they may have a lead magnet or a brochure or something that somebody downloads, but it doesn't really connect to the core offer. Maybe you don't even have a core offer. Maybe you have too many core offers. Maybe your pricing is based on what other competitors are doing or what you've heard in the marketplace is a reasonable price. And it doesn't relate to your cost structure or your profit or your cash flow. And it's just all disjointed. And a lot of companies we work with will go into them and they want to figure out what their marketing budget is. And that's a red flag in itself, because if a company's asking for the marketing budget, I know they don't understand the return on investment. Okay, we measure it by taking LTGP, lifetime gross profit per customer, compared to customer acquisition costs. And when you understand that ratio, let's say you're earning $3 for every dollar you spend to get a customer, you would never want to limit your marketing spend. If it's working and if you're measuring it, you don't want to pour the gasoline on it until operations break. But most companies, they don't understand sales and marketing and how it all connects. And if that's you, it's not your fault. Because think about how school teaches it. You take a marketing class. There's not really sales classes in college. Maybe there are. I never saw them. It's mostly like marketing. It's all based on like marketing. A lot of this stuff's outdated. The world's moving so fast. But it's really hard to connect things. So then you go out in the real world and you're trying to connect it. And there's all these apps and all these systems and all these people talking about it. But if it doesn't come together, you have a broken sales and marketing engine. And this is what prevents most companies from scaling, because they'll overspend on sales and marketing and they won't grow, or they'll grow by attracting the wrong type of customers that don't produce cash flow, and then it's a downward cycle. I had a guy come to me recently and he's like, hey, the board is pressuring me to grow, but I can't grow. I was like, why can't you grow? He's like, well, every time we grow, we burn through cash. I was like, all right, so explain to me, like, how does your offer work? So he explained his offer, and essentially what was happening is every time he brought on a new customer, and I can't remember the exact numbers, but every time he brought on a new customer, they would lose like $500. And it's because they collected a little bit up front, and then on the back end, they had to put in all this work over the first 30 days just to onboard them and to deliver value. And so when I looked at the model, I was like, your offer is broken. And you're not upselling, you're not cross-selling, you're not offering downsells as like the safety net. And therefore, like that whole part of the process is broken. And then the cost of delivery was high. And therefore, yeah, he's losing $500 every single customer that he brought on. So it's like, no wonder why he's so anxious about growing. And so that's what I'm talking about. When you have a lead generation strategy, and then you have a strong funnel to like bring all those leads through, and then you have a really clear offer, and that offer ties to like your ICP, your ideal customer profile, what they want, the problems you're trying to solve for them. And it ties back to your offer and your capabilities and what you're really good at, and your pricing matches your numbers, right? You understand your cost structure. And all this comes together, guess what? You scale your business and you scale in a profitable way. And oftentimes, here's the cool thing, you can just make a few tweaks in this area and it radically changes your cash flow, radically changes. And if you try to scale your business without cash flow, either you'll have to take on more debt or give away more equity in your business, and you don't want to do that. So there are so many ways that you could fix this in your company today, right? Your offer, your pricing, your structure, everything in order to make all the difference in the world. So those are the three things. Document, create those checklists. That's number one. Number two is define success in every single role. Make sure responsibility and accountability is crystal clear across the entire organization. And then number three, please fix your sales and marketing engine, because it'll make all the difference in the world and it'll ensure that you stay in business. All right, that's what I have for you. Until next time, take care of yourself. Cheers. So if this is interesting to you, click down below in the show notes. We have a link. Click down below. If this is interesting to you, click down below in the show. Okay.